Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and we're going to be talking about Land Rover Defenders in today's video. Now, I do want to apologize in advance that I don't have a Defender to display in today's video. With the other videos in this series, I basically went to a dealership that I normally film with, and I did a little walk around and showed you the vehicle that I could be potentially looking at. But there are no Defenders out there right now. They're all people bought all of them. So I don't have anything to show you in today's video, but we're still going to talk about the Defender because it is a vehicle I'm considering purchasing. As always, if you're shopping for the first time, I'm going to put a link to my car buying guide in the description down below where you can save time and money the next time you purchase a car. So definitely check that out. And, well, let's talk about Defenders. So again, sorry that you have to stare at my ugly face and don't get to see a beautiful Land Rover Defender. Yeah, it just, supply chain issues. It is what it is. But anyways, let's talk about what the Defender is all about. So the new Defender was released for the 2020 model year, and it's a really cool off-road vehicle. Now, obviously, just like the Mercedes G-Wagon, most people will never take them off-road to buy them. It is, a Beverly Hills mall crawler, right? It's a quote-unquote budget G-Wagon is what a lot of people will call it. But the new Defender has some pretty cool off-road tech. So first off, it, on paper might not seem like a really capable off-roader because it's unibody. All the other vehicles I mentioned in the series are body on frame. And then on top of that, the Defender has independent front and rear suspension. All of the other vehicles I've mentioned in this series have either solid front and rear axles, or they at least have a solid rear axle. And so this is the most car-like out of all the vehicles I mentioned, and so that seems kind of weird. Why would you even be looking at that? But we'll kind of talk about that in a moment. Aside from the car-likeness nature, and my finger just cramped up holding the camera because of how I was holding it, the Defender has some cool off-road tech. So it's got air suspension as an option. Some packages it comes standard. If you put the air suspension in the highest ride-height setting, it has 11.5 inches of ground clearance. Just to give you guys an idea of how huge that is, this is my 2021 Ram TRX, which is an off-roading machine, and it has 11.8 inches of ground clearance. So a Defender on basically on-road tires, not even beefy 35s, has almost as much ground clearance as what my TRX has with 35s and Baja suspension and all the crazy stuff that comes with the TRX. So the Defender, right out of the box, sounds pretty cool from an off-road perspective. It also has this really cool advanced traction control system that basically allows it to crawl over anything. I've seen so many off-road videos with the Defender where it just figures it out. Again, it doesn't make sense because it's unibody, independent front and rear suspension, and has basically street tires, but it can just crawl up so much stuff. And so you guys can imagine if Ben Hardy bought a Defender, I would deck it out from an off-road perspective. Well, sort of. I wouldn't go all crazy, but I would definitely do bigger tires, at least 33s, if not 35s, maybe even 37s, but probably 33s or 35s, depending on exactly what I wanted to do with it from an off-road perspective. And again, I'm not sure about the suspension. If I got the air suspension, I probably wouldn't need to do super big tires because I would already have a ton of ground clearance. But if I didn't do air suspension, maybe bigger tires, I think it'd be easier to lift if I didn't do air suspension, because air suspension systems are definitely difficult to lift because of all the components and everything that's associated with them. But anyways, probably do a little lift with it, add off-road tires, and I do smaller wheels, like 18-inch wheels. Now, I don't know if that'll work for some of the higher-up packages, because the V8 Defender and the inline 6 Defender have pretty big brakes. And if you guys are running from a powertrain perspective, the Defender has a base model 4-cylinder that's just under 300 horsepower. The inline 6 is about 400 horsepower, and then the V8's over 500 horsepower. The V8 would be awesome to get for the channel, don't get me wrong, but it'd probably be very hard to get one. It'd probably take a while to get one if I try to order one. And on top of that, I think the brakes would probably be too big for me to fit off-road wheels. So there's definitely some downsides to the V8. Now, the other thing to mention is, again, this is most likely going to be like the family vehicle I'm getting. That's kind of what we've talked about throughout this series. And so, getting a V8 might not necessarily be the most practical if it's just going to be like a, family type car that'll take on off-road adventures and film off-road videos with. Because, it's not going to get as good a fuel economy. But again, if I lift it and all that stuff, the V8 might get the best fuel economy because it'll have the power to move the bigger tires and everything. So definitely a lot to consider from that perspective. And, on the family vehicle side of things, just like the G-Wagon, tons of storage space in the trunk area. Seat room is pretty solid as well. And the thing I like about the Defender more than any other vehicle, well, the ZR2 has the same thing, is it has resistance seats. So basically, if the future baby Ben decides to make a mess all over the seats, they're very easy to clean off in the Defender if you get the resist seats. They're supposed to be resistant to like off-road stuff, but you know, baby liquids and off-road stuff, basically the same thing, right? And so that's something that's appealing to me, using it as a family type car, right, to do off-road adventures with, is it would be easy to clean off the interior, just like the Silverado ZR2. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. The other thing is, if I did get the air suspension, that actually would be super cool for like loading up a baby, because then I can just lower it down, and then it'd be easy to load the baby up, the car seat, all that kind of stuff. And then if I go off-roading, then I can raise it up, and so I can have the ground clearance and the easy access. But there are some downsides to the Defender. So first off, we already talked about it. It's unibody, and it has independent front and rear suspension. So that's gonna make it ride really smooth on-road, which will be great, again, for on-road driving. But for off-roading, that means it doesn't have the best articulation, and so there is that. And also with unibody vehicles, they're stiffer than body on frame typically. Hopefully you guys can see me. The lighting in this video is probably horrible. Actually, let's just close the wrong button. I don't know how to use my T-Rex. Let's close the sunroof so then the lighting's a little bit more normalized. But anyways, because of that rigidity, it's great for turning on road, but off road, it makes it so that when you hit big bumps, sometimes it can hurt quite a bit because it just goes through the whole chassis instead of, you know, body on frame, where you kind of don't feel it as much when you go over really big bumps. So there is definitely that to take into consideration as well. So it, again, it has crazy off-road specs, and I've seen it climb up crazy things, but it probably won't be able to do as good as something like what I've talked about earlier in the series, like the Jeep Gladiator Rubicon, which has solid front and rear axles and is body on frame, for example. And then aside from that, the other thing is with the reliability with the Defenders. Now, I'm not just gonna flat out say that Range Rovers are the most unreliable vehicles on the planet. Some people do that. I'm not that like mean to the brand. I reviewed quite a few of them, and I've reviewed some Range Rovers with higher mileage, and they still worked. All the features still worked. But I've seen quite a bit with air suspension potentially failing, electronics, especially the infotainment system, and also like most Land Rover dealerships have their service departments backed up for months. There's a reason. So yeah, reliability could be a pretty big concern with the Defender. So that is something that I think goes against it. And then, yeah, I think there is that. But pricing, depending on what I get, it could be really good or really bad, basically. So if I got like a 4-cylinder Defender, which I can for sure get with small wheels, which I've been thinking about, then that's actually, it's gonna be expensive, but it's not gonna be crazy. It's gonna be like the $60,000 range for what I want. If I get the 6-cylinder, I'm still gonna be in that like $60,000 range because I wouldn't get too many options with it. Now, if I upgrade to the V8, I'll be over $100,000. So I think the 6-cylinder would be the sweet spot. But that V8 that Land Rover uses, I trust that a lot more than the inline 6. And the inline 6 comes from BMW. I'm not saying it's a horrible engine, but like, after owning this TRX for a while with the, you know, supercharged V8, I really trust it. Like, it's such a robust engine. It can handle so much. A turbocharged inline 6 with a mild hybrid system, I don't know. I don't know if I trust that as much. And so there is kind of like that consideration as well. And so the Defender's a really cool vehicle overall, right? So basically, to just finish things up, there's definitely some pros and cons to the Defender. I honestly did not like it all that much when it first came out. Like, I thought it looked pretty cool, but when I drove and everything, I wasn't, I guess, shocked all that much at how it drove. I was kind of like, oh, this is just like a car that looks like an off-road SUV. Like, it didn't really like make me feel all that cool. But now that I've seen off-road videos with the Defender, now that I've gotten more into off-roading, the Defender excites me a lot more because it's this cool, like, weird, new age, techie off-roader. And so, I don't know, I think it could be pretty cool to have on the channel. Obviously, you know, TFL has had some interesting issues with their Defenders. That should say something about the situation, that they've had to buy multiple. But yeah, I don't know, I think it could be a good family vehicle. I think it could be a fun off-road adventure vehicle as well. I don't know how it stacks up against the other options in your guys' minds, but I'd like to hear what you guys think, if the Defender is your #1 pick out of the series so far. So far we have talked, again, Mercedes G-Wagon, Silverado ZR2, Toyota Tundra TRD Pro / Sequoia TRD Pro, Jeep Gladiator Rubicon, and now Land Rover Defender. So those are kind of like the choices so far in the series. There might be more that I'll mention as things go on, But that's kind of the selection so far, so I want you guys to let me know kind of what you think, and I'll probably do like a summarization video in the near future of which one I end up picking, obviously. But yeah, I'll see you guys.